الأطراف الصناعية والتقنيات المساعدة تمثل أحد الاحتياجات الأساسية لذوي الإعاقة التي يجب أن نسعى إلى توفيرها وتطويرها. وسيحدثنا عن ذلك الأستاذ الدكتور خالد جوهر، مدير برنامج الهندسة الميكانيكية بجامعة لينكولن المملكة المتحدة. دكتور خالد، حضرتك سمعنا؟
أهلا، حضرتك سامع كويس، بس بحاول أعمل شير سكرين دلوقتي.
تمام يا دكتور، اتفضل.
شكرا جزيلا. عندي بس مشكلة إن تقريبا ما عنديش أكسس إن أنا أعمل شير سكرين. Can you give me access please?
Yeah sure، بس ثانية واحدة بس هنشوف التكنيكال بروبلم دي. حضرتك ممكن تجرب تاني دلوقتي يا دكتور؟
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcomed.
I still have the same problem. Can you advise more, please? I still have the same problem with the share screen.
دكتور، الشير سكرين ظاهر عندنا.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see your presentation. You can start ahead now.
Oh, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Right, good afternoon, I think good evening everyone. It's my pleasure to have a keynote talk within this really important conference. I'm Khaled Goher. Of course, as you can see from the name, I'm originally Egyptian. I'm currently the program leader or head of department for mechanical engineering. This is within the University of Lincoln. I'm the founding director of the Biorobotics and Healthcare Technologies Laboratory as well. Thanks Dr. Ahmed for the invitation, and thanks for the organizing committee as well for inviting me to talk about our research and what we can do in collaboration to support the initiatives which are really great in Egypt nowadays. And of course this conference is a great start. Just a bit about me, of course beyond and above everything, I'm really proud to be Egyptian and working now in the UK and other different countries for the last around 15 years ago now. I put over here all my contact details, and by all means I will be happy to share this contact details with everyone. I will send it to Dr. Ahmed, and you are more than welcome, Dr. Ahmed, and the organizing committee as well to share it as you see appropriate. We have a portfolio of research over the last 10 years, around 32 million Egyptian pound, 1.6 million British pound, and this to support mainly the research in assistive devices for elderly people and people with disability as well. Just a bit about the University of Lincoln. As you can see here, if you visited Lincoln before, or Lincolnshire, this is a big county. This is shown now in the map of the United Kingdom. We are toward a bit to the north, around 100 miles from London. And if you visited Manchester, which is central England anyway, we are around 65 miles. It's around less than 2 hours driving anyway from London, and probably 1 hour from Manchester. Lincoln is a very historical city. And one of these photos here now you can see Lincoln Cathedral. This is on the top hill of Lincoln itself. The university is ranked 17 in the UK. This is like last year, 2020. As you know, like the UK itself has around 135 institutions, and I hope I can show you the campus physically, but at least I tried to bring a picture of our campus. It's a lovely place. We are surrounded by a pool, which is part of a small river around Lincolnshire. The outlines which I will focus on, merely I'll try to balance between prosthetics and assistive technologies, the research we do at the University of Lincoln, and of course the advances in prosthetics and assistive technologies. I will talk in brief about some collaboration and partnership initiatives between the University of Lincoln and ASTMT, and of course with the public sector in Egypt as well. Before I start, I just feel I should inform you about the research and the development agenda for the last 10 years within our labs at the University of Lincoln. So as you can see here, like the big umbrella is digital transformation in healthcare technologies. This is our main theme. And if I wanted to talk specifically about the ongoing research and the future research as well, the UK has one of the very well established health systems probably in the world, National Health Service, NHS, and one of the main focus of our research now at Lincoln is to develop new scanning technologies. What happened over the last year since COVID-19 started around January 2020, maybe I think 1 month before, the whole health system in England and most of the world is under severe pressure. And if I give an example about the situation in England, we have two different healthcare settings. The hospitals are the secondary settings, and GPs or family doctors, we call them GPs or primary settings. And what happened due to COVID-19, long waiting list for people who have emergency, because every priority has been given to COVID-19 patients. And what we are trying to do now, we need to remove this pressure from the National Health Service by having, if you can think about MRI, scanning, CT scanners, etc. These facilities are mainly in England within the secondary or the hospitals. So we try to bring new technologies to be located in community and primary settings. We are working on multi-modal connectivity and mobility network for rural areas. Lincolnshire and many places in England are remote locations, and you can imagine that like people who are living their own, because teenagers after 18 years old they leave home, and you find like the parents are living on their own without any support from family members, or sometimes they struggle as well with relatives as well. So we try to have like this multimodal connectivity, as we call it. We have great ongoing research on wearable devices as well to support remotely and aging population. One of the great areas which is going very well is smart assistive technologies, and here the focus is multifunctional. So if you have a device, rather than like supporting one function for one person, if we think like to develop novel technologies for multifunctional, so you can think about rehabilitation, doing exercises at home, probably if there is any element of telemedicine as well, this will be great. Of course, we are not working on our own sitting in the lab, but we have collaborators and funders as well. So I brought samples here of leading companies. Innovation UK is our main funding body. National Health Service, we work well with the industry, and I brought here like number of logos for different company leaders. We are working with the public sector, because I have one slide I will show in the next few minutes. It's not about only science, it is about collaboration beyond the science as well. So, and I will show you some examples of these. Just when you think about like 135 institutions within the UK, I think we can make ourselves unique within the discipline. So I put here like samples of Warwick University, Salford University College London, Newcastle Imperial College London, Bristol, etc. And here are example of what they are focused on and what we are trying to do within the University of Lincoln. And I can elaborate more on the University of Lincoln focus on research here. So when I mentioned about modular, adaptable children prosthetics, this is our main focus. One of the major issues with children prosthetics, children are growing with time. And when you think about like prosthetic devices, they cost a fortune. People need to afford a great deal of fund in order to buy a prosthetic device for a child. And imagine that like within 2 or 3 months, the child will grow and the prosthetic will not be fit well with him. So we try to develop novel technologies to be adaptable devices, which will be able to grow as the children grows as well. One of the major limitations of exoskeleton devices as assistive devices, exoskeleton is one of the categories of assistive technologies. They are very expensive, and believe it or not, some of them are around £50,000. £50,000. This is a £1 million Egyptian pound anyway, and not everyone can afford this. So we try to challenge us and our researchers having disposable devices which are rapid manufactured, for example, using 3D printed. We can use them for like a year and then will be disposable, recyclable, and so on. We focus on multi-purpose devices for elderly people. So rather than like someone wanted to invest in a device which will support one function, we just try to have multi-purpose devices as well. We close the cycle by our research. So we start from the end user, and I can remember like Dr. Abir, Dr. Amna Al-Ta'i as well, they mentioned about end user assessment. So we start from the end user, we bring a piece of technology to support him as per he require, and we do functional assessment as well to make sure this is going well. So these are the main focus of our research at the University of Lincoln. I brought you like a number of statistics to give you a feeling of the challenges facing the world in terms of mobile robotics for rehabilitation. This is like a nice chart showing like mobile robotics and medical robotics and medical assistive technologies. It's around 27% of the global market, by the way, with around 11.6 million disabled people in the UK. The population is nearly 65 million, and we have around 12 million disabled people, of course, with different disability levels. Out of the 12 million, we have around 6.5 million with mobility impairment, of course, with different, so people may be totally paralyzed or have upper limb disability or lower limb disability, but in total 6.5 million. This is a huge number when you talk about one of the best healthcare technology, healthcare service in the world as NHS anyway. The reason for this, and one of the challenges which is facing England and many other European countries, and is globally as well, is population is aging. So we are reaching around 35% or 40% of the population in England and many other European countries as aging population. People are living longer, more than 8 years, some of them like 90 or 100 years old anyway. And this brings a lot of challenges because the government should give support. We should have more availability of assistive technologies in order to support this population who is aging with time. One of the, for example, when I always use this slide in my presentation, Olympic 2012 in London, Oscar Pistorius, and I put here like the YouTube video, and you are, by all means, I will send the slides to the organizing committee anyway. He's running and is competing with healthy people without any sort of amputations or disability, and he was able to compete well only using the blades. Of course, this is like a very complex technology. using different sophisticated type of materials. But this is an example of can we bring life to people? And this was a good example of someone who was totally paralyzed in the lower limb, and he was able to compete with other normal persons. When I talk about orthopedic prosthetic devices, I will look at this particular aspect from industry and market size. And here, like the drive, we have three drivers for the market for prosthetics. Incidents due to trauma or injuries. We need to think about implant products as well, which is a new challenge in the field of prosthetic devices. I brought here like number of leading companies like Autobot, Stryker, Touch Bionic, Blatchford are main leader. But the problem with these companies, the products are very, very expensive. And I can see one of the major challenges is affordability of a device. I think part of the partnership which I will propose with the organizing committee towards the end of my presentation, can we think together in having affordable devices, affordable assistive technologies and prosthetics in particular for people in developing countries, for people who are not able to afford such a huge amount of money to buy a prosthetic device for their people. Upper limb prosthetics is a major challenge. I'd like to give you a feeling of the worldwide market. We talk about, for example, the United States around 545 million by 2025, by the way. Industry in India is doing great. Unfortunately, we don't have this industry yet in Egypt, but is not a big deal. And I think I can able to propose some solutions or some initiatives towards the end of my presentation of how we can start an industry which will bring affordable solution to our people in Egypt. Healthcare technologies and mainly the smart home healthcare technologies is one of the major challenges. And if you can have a look on the numbers which I brought here from this statistics, we talk about like billions of US dollars, 6 billions a year in 2018. And if you think about like 7 years later, 2025, we'll talk about like more than $30 billion industry statistics for the global need of home healthcare technologies. So and this could be fall prevention for people because it is a big risk and a big disaster, for example, for elderly people to fall, or if we cannot afford and give access to a particular assistive tools or technology to a disabled person. Some more statistics on the situation now, like in Africa and mainly as an example, by the way, we have around 60 to 80 million people with disability. This is a huge number to think about. And I am 100% sure that very little percent of this number have access to assistive technologies or prosthetic devices. The United States on its own has 185,000 amputation a year. And of course, the reason could be different from the Middle East, could be different from England. So diabetes is one of the major reasons for amputations, which is leading to a lifelong disability. Out of the 185,000 amputation, around 25,000 amputation is upper limb in the arms or upper limb amputations anyway. This particular challenge about the prosthetic rejection is one of the main focus of my research. The reason I focus on research for children prosthetics is mainly about the rejection, because unless a prosthetic device is fitted at the very early stage of a child, the rejection rate will be high. So people mainly and very simply will reject to use a prosthetic device because it is a strange body which need to be fitted with a human body. And that's why the main key message, we should adapt and fit a prosthetic device at a very early stage if we have children amputations. Mainly the challenge is like discomfort in prosthetic devices, a lack of utility, or huge weight of the device. This is one of the main barriers as well for people to use prosthetic devices. And as researchers and scientists, and of course before this we are engineers, so we need to think about good engineering solution with less weight, compatible with the human body, and of course will give the level of comfort. When I started like research about prosthetic devices, I started to focus on the UK, and believe it or not, I've been shocked by this data here. 7,000 amputation a year in the UK, with around 135 amputation in legs every week. Mainly the reason in the UK is because of diabetes. The reason for amputation could be different in other countries depending on the situation. So if we talk about, for example, like area of conflict, wars and conflicts could be a reason for this. But like our main challenge, for example, in the UK is like diabetes. And here, like the pressure on the government, around 60 million pound a year need to be spent to support people. When I talk about the challenges here, is not only in the UK, is not only in Europe, affordability. And I remember I joined like few sessions from this morning from Dr. Abir, from Dr. Amna, and Mrs. Iglal Shnoda. It is about the affordability. Not everyone, not every family will be able to buy a particular prosthetic or assistive tool for a child or a member of the family. And the government has enough to support, has enough as well. So I think we need the key message, we need to think about affordable solution for people rather than more expensive. If we can have early exposure and adoption of prosthesis to a child, this is the key message to avoid the rejection rate. So affordability, early exposure at early stage. So we shouldn't wait until the child, for example, is 3 or 4 years old. Early adoption is the key message. We are trying to do, and I think we have a great progress on modularity of the design, and hereby try to avoid any technical elements. Anyway, modularity in design or solution, either assistive tool or a prosthetic devices. For example, if you need to replace a particular device, we shouldn't replace the whole system. We can replace some of components. So if we can have some modular element in the design, this will save money as well. And here, like the challenge, as I mentioned, about children grow and they will outfit as a prosthetic devices. I can see from the audience and participant in the conference as well as professor of coming from medical background, just a background on amputations. We have different situations, either upper limb or lower limb. The major challenge, if we have the amputation at the joint itself, for example, the shoulder joint or the elbow joint, we call it disarticulation. The problem is, the higher the level of the amputation, the biggest challenge for having a solution, because the remaining part of the muscle will be less. So for example, if we have amputation above the knee, this is hard to deal compared to amputation below the knee. Of course, amputations at the joint itself or knee disarticulation is a big challenge as well. But when you think about the different scenarios of amputations, it means that we need to bring a custom design, and that's why it makes very expensive technology, because you will not be able, for example, to buy from Amazon or from AliExpress or Souk.com, for example, a particular assistive technology or a device, and mainly prosthetic devices. They are not available for online commercialization because they are custom made. We make them for a particular people. I just give you a few examples of the research we developed at the University of Lincoln. This is the first UK and worldwide device or myoelectric prosthetic devices for children under less than 2 years old. Probably why we focused on 2 years old. because mainly the government in the UK don't give any prosthetic device for a child less than 2 years. And mainly the reason is the cost implication is very high and the child will grow very quick. So the government will wait for 2 years. So why this is a big challenge? If we wait for 2 years, the rejection rate will be high. The child will decline or reject to wear the device. So what we did, we developed what we believe is the first UK and worldwide device for prosthetic for children, of course, like upper arm. When I mentioned about affordability, we use rapid manufacturing, 3D printing, using different type of materials, and this is like was an exoskeleton or like prosthetic hand for a child with amputation in his arm as well. Other examples of other prosthetic and affordable mainly, and for example, if you want to buy something similar to this one from a company, probably you need to pay around maybe more than £10,000 Egyptian UK pound. We can develop this within a few hundreds by the way. We test this device within our lab and it shows it approved reliability to be used with the children by the way. These are examples of other research projects, other exoskeleton devices for people to support augmenting the muscles for walking, sit to stand, transition, and so on. People who have a problem in their knees and they do a knee replacement, we have a really great project in exercising the knee following a knee replacement as well. Where is the advances going now? Where is the future? The current focus now of prosthetic devices, we attach a body around the remaining object, or the we call the stump or the residual limb. But like the future now, we need to have connect the device itself to the bone. But this is not a small challenge, it is a bigger challenge because we need to be careful with infections and many other elements as well. Believe it or not, these are like stuff which is going on around the world now. People are thinking about, we call them see-through designs for fashion style. So we don't like to disadvantage anyone for having a disability. And these are examples of prosthetic devices for women. This is one of the most advanced prosthetic arm, and this is around £50,000 by the way, developed by top bionics company. And of course, not everyone can afford this device, but I think you will be able to bring affordable solutions. Before I jump to what sort of initiative collaboration between the University of Lincoln and the organizing committee in Alexandria anyway, is not only about science, because when you think about assistive technologies, and I'm recalling from the previous talk by the other respective people, you need to keep in your mind the needs assessment and the expectation of people. So we need to work with the end users and the stakeholders. And you will find scientists coming from different disciplines, engineers, software, design, social scientists, physiotherapy as well, biomechanics. But this is not only enough. So this part here is the science and the engagement with the end user. But nothing will not be able to have a success unless we work with the industry, with the public sector, and non-government organization. And I could see a number of public sectors already present within this conference. So within the audience of this conference, we have all the elements to have a successful collaboration and partnership in the future. This is a concept. Imagine like people who are living on their own in their house, and we have the public transportation. Yes, this is good, but if we talk about these people with disabilities or elderly people who are isolated in a remote place, in a rural area, we need to think about like a method of connecting them to the public and private transportation as well. And assistive technologies is the key message here. So this could be a wheelchair, this could be any assistive technologies like exoskeletons, and so on. Could be a scooter. And here we need to connect people to a hospital, to the school, to the park, to the station, in anywhere. We call them multimodal connectivity and mobility network. And this is ongoing research at the moment, which is a multi-million pound investment. Finally, within the next few slides, I'm sorry if I'm taking too much time, we are keen at the University of Lincoln to have collaboration between the university and many Egyptian government organizations. And we are really, really happy to support civil society organization in Alexandria and Cairo, and maybe beyond. And I could see some examples within this conference presented by other people as well. We are happy to work with a public and private biomedical organization. We will have a new biomedical engineering program will start September next year as well. And we'll be happy to have a partnership to work together for this. Mainly, the main key thing which we are really interested in to support research for people with disability, either the social sciences or engineering aspect of it. We have some concept on working with organizing panel to have society awareness program as well, because one of the major challenges for people with disabilities, they are isolated. They feel shame to disclose or talk about their disability. There is some misknowledge and misunderstanding of the society of what it means, the disability. So we end with a scenario for people who are isolated. They don't have or disadvantaged by the situations. They don't have equal opportunities for work and so on. So we are happy to work with you guys for society awareness program in Egypt as well to make a change in this. As example of strategic partnership between the University of Lincoln and the Arab Academy of Science, Technology, Maritime in Alexandria, and the other branches in Cairo, Aswan, and Al Alamein as well. We think about undergraduate or postgraduate programs. This could be a joint collaboration. And I think we have the foundation to start this immediately if there is a desire. There is a vehicle for institutional linkage. The UK and Egypt started a few years ago a Newton Musharrafa Fund, a Newton British Council, Newton Fund with Musharrafa as well as partnership. So we can have some sort of agreement between the two institutions and beyond as well. We are happy to travel to Egypt to give workshops, and we are more than happy to invite your students as well for internships at the University of Lincoln at zero cost. One of the main things which we think about, and I'm proposing here on behalf of the University of Lincoln, is digital innovation program. And this digital innovation program could boost a society awareness of the importance of assistive technologies, how we can provide inclusion environment for people with disability. And I'll be more than happy to elaborate more if there is a desire. The message, of course, I'm proud to be Egypt. أنا مصري الحقيقة by background يعني، ومن 14 سنة برا مصر. الحقيقة خلال ال4 سنين اللي فاتوا افتقدت ان انا ازور البلد، وكان عندي بلان من سنة. للأسف بسبب كوفيد 19 ما قدرتش، والحجز بتاعي اتلغى مرتين أنا وأسرتي. المسج اللي هنا اللي أقدر أقولها في النهاية الحقيقة يعني إن إحنا if we are able to have availability of assistive technologies, that will support inclusion, the social integration of people, economic, and ultimately the national security. These are the elements which we'll be able to achieve. Even if we invest more at the beginning to have available assistive technologies for people. But on the long term, these are the outcomes, and I think this will help a lot. For us, we believe it is not a job. This is ethical commitment and service to the society. ده واجب الحقيقة علينا، وخدمة للمجتمع، وخدمة للناس اللي هم مننا، اللي هم ما عندهمش أي ذنب إن هم عندهم مشاكل نتيجة الإعاقة. وده واجب مننا كعلماء وكمهندسين وكمجتمع مدني ان احنا نوفر الخدمه دي وان احنا ندي من وقتنا. شكرا لحضراتكم على الوقت ده وعلى الدعوه، وبشكر دكتور احمد، واتمنى ان نزوركم بشكل فيزيكالي ان شاء الله تعالى، وتكون المحاضره دي فيس تو فيس. طبعا على الرحب والسعه ان انتم تزورونا في جامعه لينكولن هنا، وشكرا جزيلا لحضراتكم جميعا.
شكرا دكتور
شكرا
خالد.
جدا دكتور خالد، حضرتك شرفتنا النهارده.
شكرا
جزيلا يا فندم. شكرا يا فندم، تحياتي.
سؤال او تعليق؟ ممكن سؤال او تعليق؟ اوكي، عايز سؤال دكتور خالد؟
اتفضل يا فندم.
هو بس عندنا بس استفسار بس هو دكتور خالد، بشكر حضرتك على البرزنتيشن العظيمه والمعلومات القيمه اللي حضرتك اضفتها. عندي معلومه لحضرتك او انفورميشن ممكن بعد كده نبني عليها شراكه في المستقبل. احنا وزاره التضامن باعتبارها هي المعنيه بقضيه الاعاقه في مصر من بين الوزارات، حاليا هي مشاركه في التحضير لمبادرة كبيرة تحت رعاية فخامة الرئيس لتزويد المواطنين بالأطراف الصناعية اللي هم محتاجينها من خلال إنشاء مصنع هيبقى موجود في مصر هنا لصناعة الأطراف الصناعية، سواء الأطراف الصناعية السفلية أو العلوية، وكمان الأجهزة المساعدة. احنا حاليا شغالين، وزارة التضامن عندها رابط معلن على الموقع بتاعها للأشخاص ذوي الإعاقة الراغبين في التقدم للحصول على أطراف صناعية. وفي يعني ممكن نتكلم على الموضوع ده بالتفصيل اكتر، لكن اللي انا عايز اقوله النقطتين الحقيقه. لو النقطه الاولانيه ان احنا في احتياج شديد جدا في مصر ان احنا نوطن صناعه الاطراف الصناعيه. توطين صناعة الأطراف الصناعية ده ممكن يتم من خلال نقل التكنولوجي وغيرها من الحاجات، وفي جهات معنية قايمة على الموضوع ده، لكن الحقيقة لابد أن المجتمع المدني والعقول العلمية الموجودة بره مصر تساعد من خلال عمل برامج للتدريب المهني جوه مصر هنا لتكوين كوادر من الفنيين اللي بيقدروا ان هم يعملوا صيانة للأطراف الصناعية. احنا في عندنا أجزاء في الأطراف الصناعية ما بنقدرش نصنعها في مصر، بالإضافة لكده احنا ما عندناش فنيين مدربين على صيانة الأطراف الصناعية. يعني لما يكون عندنا حملة كبيرة هنشتغل على تزويد الأطراف الصناعية لكافة المصريين اللي بيحتاجوا للأطراف الصناعية. أعتقد هيبقى عندنا مجال كبير إن احنا يكون عندنا مهن كتيرة مرتبطة بالصناعة دي، فأعتقد إن ده مجال ممكن نتعاون فيه مع بعض، لأن ده حاجة للمستقبل القريب هتبقى بتفيد كل المصريين. فدور المجتمع المدني، دور العلماء، دور الناس الموجودين في الجامعات، عندنا بوليتكنيكس، عندنا جامعات تكنولوجية بقت موجودة زي جامعات أهلية. أعتقد إن احنا عندنا مجال كبير جدا للتعاون في المستقبل. بشكر حضرتك جدا على البرزنتيشن. الحقيقة أنا اسمي أحمد سعدة، أنا مستشار وزير التضامن الاجتماعي لدعم العمل الأهلي وشؤون الدعم الصحي.
شكرا لحضرتك جدا، شكرا جزيلا يا فندم، شكرا جزيلا. تعليق بسيط يعني تحت امر حضرتك وتحت امر وزاره التضامن الاجتماعي. يعني احنا بنعرض خدماتنا في اي وقت يا فندم، على استعداد للمشاركه في تصميم برامج للتدريب للفنيين. انا شخصيا على استعداد، واظن الجامعه هنا ما عنديش اي شك انها ترحب ان هي تدعم زيارات لمصر لتدريب الناس في مصر في اي وقت يكون مناسب.
شكرا لحضرتك.
تحت امرك، شكرا جزيلا، تحياتي.
شكرا جدا دكتور خالد جوهر. ودلوقتي عفوا، شكرا. اوكي، نريد أن نسلط الضوء على فجوة الكفاءات وقابلية التوظيف التي تعد عائق بين ذوي الإعاقة وتحقيق النجاح المهني المرغوب. وسيكون معنا الضيوف: سعادة النائبة الدكتورة رانيا الجزائري عضو مجلس النواب المصري، سعادة النائبة الأستاذة سحر البزار نائبة رئيس لجنة شؤون الخارجية مجلس النواب المصري، السيدة الأستاذة ميس أبو حجاب مدير التعليم بمؤسسة ساويرس، والدكتورة ريم عبد المجيد رئيس مجلس إدارة هاوس اوف مانجمنت للتدريب والاستشارات. مدير الجلسة معنا الإعلامية رضوى محمود حسن. وسينضم إليهم الجلسة الأخرى جلسة التوظيف الشامل وإمكانية الوصول إلى أماكن العمل. هدفنا اليوم ليس فقط بتوظيف ذوي الإعاقة رسميا الذي يتحول مع الوقت لورقة مدونة ضمن أوراق العمل، ولكن هدفنا هو التوظيف الشامل لجميع أفراد المجتمع الذي يضمن لذوي الإعاقة الحصول على الوظائف المناسبة لقدراتهم ومهاراتهم. ليس فقط ذلك، ولكن الحصول على الترقيات والوصول إلى المناصب العليا ليستفيدوا من جميع الفرص المتاحة ونستفيد كدولة بمهاراتهم، فنسعى جميعا يد واحدة نحو رفعة المجتمع. معنا في هذه الجلسة الدكتور أحمد الشافعي مدير المكتب العلمي وإدارة التدريب في سلسلة صيدليات العزبي، والسيدة أمنة الساعي الشريك والمؤسس والرئيس التنفيذي لشركة نومان دايفرز تحت إدارة الأستاذ هاني عياد رئيس قسم العمليات بمركز إدارة الأعمال بالأكاديمية العربية للعلوم والتكنولوجيا والنقل البحري.